after reviewing my other video, I realized we kind of skipped a step, so we're going to kind of back up here a little bit. So when you're talking about how to choose the type of arrow and the spine and some of those kinds of things, the most important thing is to understand what your purpose for it is. If you are going to be shooting under 40 yards and you're just going to hunt with it, and that's the only thing you're ever going to do with it other than, you know, sighting in your bow and practicing a little bit, you don't need a top shelf arrow by any means. You know, if you're hitting the 50-yard mark, going past the 50-yard mark, whether it's hunting or 3D or targets or whatever you're doing, you know, then it's time to consider a little bit nicer arrow. Or if you're flirting with the edges of, you know, speed and penetration, if you're trying to shoot a larger animal at a greater distance, if you are trying to shoot a large animal at a near distance but with a really short draw length or a lower poundage bow, those kinds of things are what helps you determine what type of arrow you should use. So in my shop, Black Eagle is our house brand, and so these are 3 of Black Eagle's options that I think demonstrate this arrow choice issue pretty well. So on my left here is an Outlaw, which is just a standard diameter, pretty low frills hunting arrow. The nice thing about these arrows is they are crested, which is the bright part here. It's not a wrap, that's actually painted on. So it makes them very visible, very easy to see during flight, very easy to find. This arrow, if you look up here, is a 300 spine and it's .005 straightness. So when you're talking about choosing an arrow, the 2 things that you're going to want to look at are, first of all, what type of arrow is it? What diameter is it? What is its intended purpose? A hunting arrow is going to be heavier than a target, or a 3D arrow is going to be. So when you're looking at those things, make sure that they all add up to what you're trying to do with it. So for these 3 arrows, I'm going to lay out 3 different categories. A lot of my customers don't ever fire farther than 40 yards. They're going to be hunting on the river bottom where they're in a tree stand, and the trees restrict their, you know, their longest shot. The Outlaw is perfect for that. It's inexpensive, it's a good quality arrow, doesn't have to be the straightest out there, because even at .005 most of these arrows are going to fly better than your average archer shoots. So very good option for inexpensive, good flight, very good management characteristics. Will fly fine out to 60, 80, 100 yards. But if you hit that 50-yard mark, you're getting into a little bit farther distance. This arrow is called the Renegade. This is their mid-grade arrow. So this is going to be a little bit higher quality than the Outlaw. It's a little bit smaller diameter, and it's still the same straightness. All 3 of these arrows are pretty close in straightness. I think most archers overpay for arrows. They're shooting an arrow that costs them too much money for what they're using it for as their purpose. So again, the Renegade is a very cost-effective arrow. It's not expensive by any means. The smaller diameter gives you a little bit better wind resistance, and it does help with penetration a little bit, gives you a little bit less frictive coefficient when the arrow is passing through an animal. So that's kind of your middle of the line if you're in the 50 to 60 yard range. If you are in the much longer range, so if you're talking about trying to hit an elk at 60, 70, 80 yards, pig at 60, 70, 80 yards, or a deer at that distance, or if you are at the very short end of the draw length and or draw weight category, micro arrows become a realistic thought at that point. This is Black Eagle's micro shaft. It's called the Deep Impact. This particular one has a wrap on it, so that orange is not a crest, that's actually a wrap. We built these arrows for my wife. The reason she uses this arrow is because she's at both the short end draw length wise and the short end draw weight wise. So this arrow gives very, very good penetration. Again, you can see we have it matched to a penetration style broadhead, and it gives very good flight characteristics, very low wind resistance, so good resistance to crosswinds, things like that, and very, very good penetration. This arrow is also a little bit heavier, and it has an outsert, which gives the arrow a heavier front of center, which gives it better resistance to sticks, twigs, wind, things like that. You can see I'm well past the 50-point mark on the 50% mark on that arrow. So those are a couple quick things that will help you determine what arrow is appropriate for you. I can pretty much tell you for certainty, if you are shooting less than 40 yards and you're spending over $120 a dozen on your arrows, you're paying too much money. Again, as always, you're welcome to ask any questions, or if you're looking for a recommendation, feel free to send me a message and we'll get you taken care of.